My boyfriend, 29 years old, and I, 28 years old, have been together for 7.5 years and have always talked about getting married. He knows that I'm so excited and ready, but he always said he just needed to have the money for a ring. I know he had to catch up on his finances and pay back rent from Infection 19, and I tried to help him with all of it. After us just putting our paychecks toward catching up on rent, he is finally squared away. He said that being behind on money was all that was ever stopping him from us getting engaged and married. Anyway, I love old things and have always wanted an antique ring that is pretty and delicate. After window shopping for a long time and daydreaming and checking this vintage ring company's website constantly, they finally posted one that was in a decent price range that I loved more than any ring in the world. And I thought now it's not so out of reach. It could be a real thing that I could have the ring I always wanted. It was the prettiest ring I ever saw. And I showed my boyfriend because I know he didn't want to pick one out himself because he is kind of clueless about style and things. He said he wanted to get it for me. He just had to wait until he had the money for a deposit and then could do a payment plan for it. I was so nervous. It would be sold before he got paid and was checking it every day. My mom even asked my boyfriend if he would like to make some money painting our dining room because she knew how much I loved the ring and wanted him to be able to reserve it before it got sold. My boyfriend and I don't keep our finances that separate, so I have been frugal all year knowing that he was planning to save some of his paychecks for a ring. So I thought once he got paid, he would call and set up a payment plan because he always said money was the only thing holding him back from proposing. I reminded him it was one of a kind and could be sold any minute because it was just added to the company's website. And he said he would call, but every day passed by, and I know he didn't. I finally asked why he was waiting for no reason, and he said he was anxious, but that he promised he'd call and secure it. I waited 2 weeks and he never called, and now it's sold. I am so sad because I adored the ring and thought it was finally time that we were ready to start the engagement wedding process, but my boyfriend just totally dropped the ball. I wish he had told me he didn't want to get it for me instead of stringing me along. Now that ring is gone, and I don't really want to pick out another one and go through this all again. He said sorry and that it's just too bad, but there's nothing we can do now. I'm so mad and hurt because I've already waited 7 years, so what's he waiting for? I feel like he let me down because he didn't even try when he knew how important this was to me. I don't know how to go back to normal and just keep happily waiting. Am I being stupid or pathetic for picking out the ring I want and bugging him about it? What should I do? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He doesn't want to marry you. He's had excuse after excuse for 7 years. Infection 19 was only 4 years ago. What was he doing 3 years before that? Now that he doesn't have the behind on bills excuse, he's saying he's anxious. I guarantee he hasn't saved a penny towards a ring. Comment 2. I am so sad for you that you're helping him pay his bills, so that he'll finally have the money to buy a ring, only for him to have no intention of buying it. He's taking you for a ride, and not in the fun way. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around for more of my story. So, after the ring got sold, things got even weirder. My boyfriend, let's call him Jay, started acting distant, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought maybe he felt guilty about the ring, but it was more than that. He was hiding something, and I was about to find out what. Last Tuesday, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I walked in and heard Jay talking in our bedroom. He was on the phone and sounded really serious. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help overhearing him say, "Yeah, I've got the money now, but I can't do this anymore." My heart sank. What money? And what couldn't he do anymore? I confronted him as soon as he hung up. He tried to brush it off, saying it was just work stuff, but I knew better. We've been together long enough for me to tell when he's lying. After some back and forth, he finally admitted that he had taken a side job from my mom, painting her dining room, and he had saved up enough for the ring. But instead of buying it, he used the money to pay off a debt he owed to his friend from years ago. A debt I knew nothing about. I was floored. Not only had he lied about the ring, but he also had a secret debt? I felt so betrayed. All this time, I thought we were in this together, saving for our future. But he was keeping secrets and using the money for something else. I didn't know what to think or feel. I was angry, hurt, and confused. Why didn't he trust me enough to tell me about the debt? And why did he promise to buy the ring if he never intended to? The next few days were rough. We barely spoke. I was trying to process everything, and he was full of apologies, but it didn't change what had happened. I started to question everything about our relationship. Had he been lying about other things too? Was I just being naive this whole time? Then, on Saturday, my mom called. She was upset because Jay hadn't finished painting the dining room, and she had guests coming over next week. I apologized and told her I'd help her finish it. But when I went over there, I found out something even more shocking. My mom told me that Jay had finished the job weeks ago, and she had paid him in full. She even showed me the receipt he signed. I couldn't believe it. Jay had lied again. He had the money for the ring all along, but chose to pay off his friend instead. And now he was lying about not finishing the job to cover up the fact that he had the money. I felt like I didn't even know who he was anymore. I went home and confronted Jay. This time, he couldn't deny it. He broke down and admitted that he was scared of committing to marriage. He said he used the debt as an excuse because he wasn't sure if he was ready to take the next step. He was afraid of losing his freedom, of the responsibility that came with being a husband. I was devastated. All these years, I thought we were on the same page, but he was just going along with it because he didn't want to lose me. I didn't know what to do. I loved him, but could I really be with someone who wasn't sure about me? Someone who would lie and betray my trust? After a long talk, we decided to take a break. I needed time to think, and he needed to figure out what he really wanted. It was the hardest decision I've ever had to make, but I knew it was the right one. I couldn't keep waiting for someone who wasn't ready to commit. So, that's where we are now. I'm staying with a friend while Jay is at our place. It's been a tough week, full of tears and heartache, but I'm starting to feel a little stronger each day. I'm realizing that I deserve someone who is as excited about our future as I am. Someone who won't lie or hide things from me. Thanks for reading. It's been a rough ride, but I'm hopeful that things will get better from here. Aita for helping freeze. The accounts of my friend who cheated on his pregnant wife. Hi, everyone. So my friend who I've known since middle school has been cheating on his pregnant wife with intimacy workers. I actually have never met his wife. I did not even know he was dating again, and only found out they had their first child when he posted a picture of their baby in our group chat. Like no one knew he was dating and literally had a baby in the middle of the pandemic. Dan and I have lived in different cities since graduating high school. We are in the same friend group, and we see each other maybe once a year when he comes to visit me, and vice versa. A couple of weeks ago, he came to my city and caught up with me and my fiancée, 29F. We talked about work and life. He congratulated me and my fiancée regarding our engagement, and we found out he and his wife were expecting another baby. We also asked him if he could help us with wedding logistics as we were planning ours. So he called his wife and we talked to her on the phone. It was nice to meet her over the phone call as I was unable to come to their wedding before. The next day, he sent me a message saying how jealous he is of me since I'm single and was wondering why I wanted to get married. He said he was looking out for me since I should think hard before getting married and that he didn't want me to make the same mistakes. Even though I didn't agree, I was curious as to where he was coming from. I asked him to open up and he told me that as the man of the household, there are a lot of things to decide on as he can't talk to his wife about them, and that he has to work a lot since his wife is a stay-at-home mother. I asked him why he can't talk to his wife about his problems, and he said that he does not want to dump his problems on her and wants to come home as a happy husband and father. So I asked him what he does to lessen the load of stress, and he said he's been seeing prostitutes. From our conversation, he's seen them prior to getting married and has done it multiple times after marriage. So obviously I knew I had to let her know as it is unsafe for their current child and unborn child. I want to tell his wife but one, I don't know her too. She's pregnant and 3. She does not have a job. I don't know her situation very well, and I'm not even sure if she has money since she's never had a job. I'm also scared that the situation will stress her out and she might have a miscarriage. So what do I do? Should I just tell her anonymously and hopefully it turns out well? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The people in these comments saying to mind your own business have no morals. That woman is at risk of serious sexually transmitted diseases. that could affect the well-being of her kids as well. The husband is also a disgusting animal, pretending to be a good man. She needs to know. Comment 2. Please tell her for her health and the health of her baby. She needs more than the usual amount of STD testing during pregnancy. Please also drop this jerk as a friend. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around. Well, things escalated pretty quickly after my last update. Turns out Dan's wife somehow got my number. She called me out of the blue, sobbing, saying she found receipts from hotels and messages to other women on Dan's phone. She was devastated and wanted to know if I knew anything about it. My heart sank. I couldn't lie to her, so I told her everything I knew. She thanked me and hung up before I could even offer any words of comfort. The next day, I heard from a mutual friend that Dan's wife had kicked him out and was planning to file for divorce. She had also gone to stay with her sister, who apparently had suspected Dan for a while but didn't have any proof until now. Dan was furious and somehow decided it was all my fault. He sent me a barrage of angry texts, accusing me of ruining his life. I didn't respond. I couldn't deal with his nonsense after what he'd done. But here's where things took a hectic turn. Dan's wife reached out to me again, this time with a different tone. She wasn't just upset, she was furious and wanted revenge. She had found out that Dan had been funneling money from their joint savings into a separate account for his escapades. She wanted to hit him where it hurt, his wallet. She asked for my help since I work in finance, and I agreed. We worked out a plan to freeze their joint accounts and redirect any of his incoming paychecks to a new account she controlled. Dan was blindsided. With his funds cut off, he couldn't afford his fancy lawyers or his secret rendezvous. He came crawling back to his wife, begging for forgiveness. But she wasn't having any of it. She went through with the divorce and got full custody of their child and the baby on the way, with a hefty child support agreement to boot. In the aftermath, Dan tried to reach out to me and our friends to gain some sympathy, but no one was interested in hearing his side of the story. He had lied and cheated, and now he was paying the price. He had to move back in with his parents and take a job at his dad's company, just to make ends meet. As for me, I felt a mix of emotions. I was glad that Dan's wife was able to take control of her life and protect her children. But I also felt a pang of sadness for the loss of my friendship with Dan. It was a harsh reminder that the choices we make can have serious consequences. Thanks for reading. Aita for banning houseplants. At my housewarming party. Despite knowing they're the go-to gift, long story, but I'll try to keep it short. Husband and I finally purchased a home that is a significant upgrade from where we've been renting and saving up. One of the benefits is that we will finally have space for all my husband's houseplants, which have been monopolizing too much space and most of our light in our 500 square foot apartment for the last 5 years. The light thing is a huge problem for me, as I experience horrible seasonal depression, and we live in a gray winter area as it is. Plus, my husband is just not the best caretaker of plants, so they often end up dry but alive, but also shedding, which I have to clean up because that's my job. Lastly, I just don't like houseplants. They're dirty, high maintenance, light monopolizing insect havens. Nothing I want in my house. But I love my husband, so I tolerate the jungle for him as much as it makes my skin crawl. Problem is, the default gift for housewarming where we live is houseplants. I honestly don't want gifts at all, but I know people feel obligated and he will bring them anyway. And I'm always thankful for the thought. But my God, I cannot handle any more fen houseplants. So, the problem is that I don't want to presume people bringing gifts, but I also don't want them showing up with dirt monsters that my husband is going to insist on keeping, but not properly caring for. Is there a polite way to say, hey, no gifts required, but if you feel obligated, please, for the love of God, do not curse us with insect habitats that we're obligated to keep in our house for the rest of time. Edit. I was only expecting a handful of responses, and this got quite a bit more attention than I thought it would. So I just want to address a few things. 1. Houseplants, not housepants. Sorry, my bad. I'm leaving it because it's funny. 2. I was definitely being a bit hyperbolic in this post, by using terms like insect havens. We don't have an insect problem. I just have a huge aversion to bugs in general, particularly in my house, which is one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of houseplants. Also, the term jungle. For people who like houseplants, they would probably find the amount we have to be okay for our space. I just find it to be a lot because I really don't like them. 3. My husband has made accommodations for me with the plants and gotten rid of some of them for me to help with the light, as well as moved things around and has refrained from purchasing more. He's not forcing me to live in misery. We just happen to have lived in an apartment with only one really good space for light, so it was jungle-like in that spot. Most of the remaining plants, while too much for my tastes in this small space, have sentimental value to him, and I would not force him to get rid of them because I love him. 4. The space and light issue with the plants is going to be resolved once we're in the new house. We have so many options on where to put them, unlike now, where we have one. My goal here is to avoid more. What we have now is just enough for the bigger space, even to my tastes, as long as he continues to care for them. Speaking of caring for them. 5. Lastly, the one great point many have made here is that my husband needs to do a better job of caring for the plants he has, and include more comprehensive cleaning efforts in his care routine. I'm happy to say that I had this conversation with him about an hour ago, and he was very understanding of the request and apologetic that he hadn't thought to do a better job with it before. He happily agreed to take that on going forward. So thank you to those of you who suggested I have that conversation. Thank you for the mostly very constructive feedback. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The houseplants that he's been neglecting can go outside where they can thrive despite that neglect. And you don't need to worry about insects or dead leaves. If they die over winter, oh well. Comment 2. I think maybe you just have an insect problem. Plants are essential for a comfortable living space, in my opinion. I have a ton of plants of various sizes, and they don't cause any of those problems. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the latest. So, we moved into the new house, and guess what? The housewarming party was a disaster waiting to happen. First off, my husband's friend, let's call him Joe, decided to ignore our polite request for no houseplants. He shows up with this giant leafy monstrosity that he proudly announces is a rare species or something. My husband's eyes lit up like it was Christmas, and I could feel my blood boiling. I plastered on a smile, but inside I was screaming. Then, my sister, who knows my feelings about plants, brought not one, but 3 succulents. She said they were low maintenance and cute. I appreciated her effort, but it was like adding fuel to the fire. The house was slowly turning into the very jungle I dreaded. In the midst of this, our neighbor, an elderly lady I'll refer to as Mrs. K, came over with a homemade pie. No plants, just pie. I could have hugged her. She whispered to me that she understood the plant situation and suggested turning one of the rooms into a plant sanctuary for my husband. That way the rest of the house could be plant-free. It was a brilliant idea, and I started warming up to it. But here's where things got really complicated. My husband's mother, who couldn't attend the party, sent over a delivery guy with a huge, exotic-looking plant. When I saw it, I lost it. I told the delivery guy we couldn't accept it, and he left looking confused and a bit hurt. My husband was upset, saying I embarrassed him and that it was a gift from his mom. We argued, and in the heat of the moment, he admitted that he felt like I never really supported his love for plants. That stung because I thought I was being accommodating by living in a small apartment jungle for years. Feeling guilty, I reached out to his mom to apologize and explain. Surprisingly, she was understanding and suggested a compromise. She offered to take the plant back and instead help us set up the plant sanctuary Mrs. K had mentioned. She said it would be her housewarming gift to us. The next day, my husband and I sat down to talk. We agreed to convert the sunroom into his plant haven. He promised to keep the rest of the house plant-free and to take full responsibility for the care and maintenance of his green friends. The tension between us eased, and we started planning the sunroom together. He was excited, and I was relieved. It felt like we were finally on the same page. As for the plants we'd received as gifts, we found homes for them with friends who were thrilled to take them. And the rare plant from Joe? It turned out to be quite valuable. and a local botanical garden was more than happy to display it. In the end, the housewarming party chaos led to a solution that worked for both of us. My husband got his dream plant room, and I got the rest of the house to myself, plant-free. It was a tough couple of weeks, but we came out stronger and more understanding of each other's needs. Thanks for reading about this busy ride. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.